In August 1951, he produced a Ralph Burns date featuring compositions and arrangements by the ex-Woody Herman pianist. Alto player Lee Konitz recalls the session.
I was under contract to Atlantic Records at the time, and I told Norman and Ralph that according to the contract I wasn't able to play solos, but Norman said, play solos. So I played some solos. He was there briefly. That was the only session that I did for that company that he ever attended. The idea that I inherited was that he goes to the sessions of the people that he liked, who's playing that he liked.
He had a little book. It was a real thing with Norman. If somebody truly irritated him, genuinely angered him, he put their name in that book. And that person never, ever would be working with Norman again, whether it was a promoter, a manager. I suppose it was musicians as well, although I don't recall any particular musician. But he had his little book, and every once in a while I'd see him open it up, and he'd write a name down, and he wrote it down in pencil. And I don't think he ever erased it, but I can just see him standing up and holding the book in his left hand and taking a pencil from his pocket and writing somebody's name in there. Maybe it was a man who did the lighting or did the sound system, or maybe the manager or whatever it was, but he had that little book and he meant it.
Publicist Virginia Wicks. Actually, there was one musician who might well have ended up in that little book. Drummer Buddy Rich, he of the short fuse, had been a regular member of JATP since 1949. However, as Mr. Granz had an equally low boiling point, a clash between the two was an argument waiting to happen. The explosion duly took place during a JATP tour. Granz fired Rich and let it be known in the August 1953 issue of Downbeat magazine that, and I quote, "Rich is a great drummer, but a bore." However, the rift was short-lived, and Granz reinstated the drummer for the 1954 season. In 1982, Rich had this to say about his one-time employer.
He used to call me, he used to call Belson, he'd call anybody that he thought would fit the picture of the group that he had in mind to record. It just so happened that when Sweets was around and Coleman Hawkins was around, all those guys, that I had a particular thing that they liked, and that was great. But there were other times when I was on the road when there were half a dozen drummers that played by Granz. Granz simply had good taste when it came to rhythm sections. And I don't mean that for the drums. I mean, think about Oscar Peterson, think about Ray Brown, Think about Herb Ellis, think about Barney Kessel. When I say I wasn't being facetious, I'm saying that he had the kind of an ear that knew what rhythm section would fit what group.
And here's a Granz rhythm section that would fit most groups. Hank Jones, Ray Brown, and Buddy Rich at Carnegie Hall in 1949. Next week, Norman Granz takes Jazz at the Philharmonic overseas. But for now, here's a view of Granz on the road as observed by his friend and publicist, Virginia Wicks.
I never saw Norman really sit back after a concert in a restaurant and just laugh and have fun. And I don't think that was his fun. His fun was putting together and putting on a concert that in the early years was not that easy to do, or to sell the promoters on, hey, this is jazz, people will come. And that was his joy, that was his fun. I never saw him dance. I never saw him laugh wildly. I never saw him visually having fun. His fun was watching the artists when they performed and knowing how good they were.
Out of the Norm is a Demas production for BBC Radio 2. I'm Nat Hentoff.
Lester Young. Dizzy Gillespie.